Welcome to this week's episode of Listen to Your Coaches. I'm your coach, Mike Wilkins, here with Coach Will Morrill. This week, we're going to touch on some current events, not super current because they did happen last weekend, but with the busy weekend last weekend, we were unable to record a fresh current event pod. But we need to give some of our fighters and coaches, a tip of the hat and, talk about them a little bit.
Absolutely.
Will, what do you say we start off with Luke Martin?
Sounds fantastic. He had his third MMA fight.
Yep, Luke Martin jumped his record up to now 3-0. Two of his fights via finish, and that's 3-0. His first fight was in November. Yeah, it was the night before Thanksgiving. So 3-0 in 5 months.
Yeah.
And we're gonna kind of dive in a little bit into like how that's pretty impressive. Especially considering the circumstance
Yes.
around Luke. So let's just briefly talk about the fight, let people know how it went. It was a rather quick fight, first round finish, giving Luke his second TKO. This one was TKO via doctor stoppage to a cut. Came out, exchanged some strikes, looked pretty good, had a good complementary level change, which kind of really like set up some good strikes, which did a lot of damage.
Yes.
He then just quick little like knee pick outside trip kind of technique there. He's just so good at like, dude, his upper for being like a shooter, his upper body stuff is just phenomenal. Gets the fight to the ground. A little bit of work there, opening up the cut, and then that's that.
Yeah. No, fantastic.
Yeah.
Nice short fight.
Yeah. It was quick. The fight's gonna be a quick fight when you receive the whole video in a text message.
Yeah. Exactly.
Like a lot of times, I like send a text like a video, and it's like, oh, too long.
Right.
You know what I mean, I'm like, hey, this came through. This must not have went very long.
The first time I watched it, I was like, oh, well, what happens after the doctor like keeps it going? Because it was so short, and then I was like, oh no, this is the whole fight.
Yep. That's it. So yeah, great performance. You want to touch on his striking in that fight?
Yeah, so in the fight, and we're going to touch a little bit about like kind of how new Luke is to striking, but one thing that he's picked up really well is kind of what we were discussing, level changes, his feints, and also just like Lucas Siebert, Luke Martin has picked up a lot on positioning very quickly. So even though, the individual techniques leave something to be desired, I'm still going to have to work out some details of punch technique and, things like that. His understanding of where he is in the cage, where he is relative to his opponent, his understanding of, fighting from both stances, it really just sets him way higher than his, fundamental striking level, I guess, kind of is. So, he used those tools really well in this fight, and I was very happy with that. With that said, and I think this is kind of where the conversation naturally goes next, Luke has been coaching wrestling for the past however many months.
Yeah, I mean, the whole wrestling season, and that really, I think, I'm not sure how much he knew going into it, how much time that would take away from his training. I coached wrestling. Oh, I knew. I coached wrestling I did 8 seasons, like starting at the very beginning of my amateur career. Actually, no, I coached a season before I started fighting. Yeah, so I did 7 seasons as a fighter, so I did my whole amateur career while coaching wrestling, and then the early portions of my pro career, right? And then there came a time where I was like, all right, I can't do it. I can't do both. Not saying that you can't continue to do both. I just didn't want to do both anymore because it's very difficult to fight in the middle of wrestling season, right? In the middle of wrestling season, right? Like it's not like, like you're coaching practice from probably like 3 to 5, 5:30, something like that. And then you got to try to get down to your training. And then you're going to be missing training due to dual meets, right? You're missing weekends because you're at a tournament almost every weekend.
It's not just time too. It's like, it's physical and like a mental and emotional energy that goes into coaching, you know what I mean? And like, think about how, like, if I teach, 3 classes in a row and, hold some pads or whatever, at the end of that day, I am just fried, you know what I mean? And so to go from that to then training yourself, like, dude, that's hard.
It is very difficult. So, it played an impact on the amount of, time he had to give to himself for improvement, right? Because I know he's a good wrestling coach because he's given a lot of time to it, So, it impacted his ability to improve in that short time. So if you take a look at his first fight in November, right? Wrestling season had just begun right before that, right? So okay, like he had a decent training camp, jumped into it, had a full training camp leading up to a fight in October that ended up falling through. So like he was ready to go, and then we just jumped in right off of wrestling season. Like wrestling season ended like his coaching season for his middle school team ended like the week before, I think, or whatever, and he fought the next week, right? And then here we are, literally like a month and 3 days removed from his past fight. So really putting these fights in short order without like your normal like training development. So we're seeing a 3-0 Luke Martin who looks like a complete package while he's fighting, but like he's at such a low level for Luke Martin.
Right, relative to where he's going
Relative to where he's going to be, dude, he is so low level right now, right? You know what I mean? And like, it's like hard to like imagine that when you see him compete and perform. You're like, oh wow, he's so good, he's so good. And I'm like, yeah, he's so good, relative to the competition in which he's competing in right now, but he's so bad relative to where he's going to be.
Yeah, him in like even a couple of months would just destroy the Luke Martin that fought last week. You know what I mean? Like, it's gonna be really fun to see now that he's kind of got the time to really dive into striking and jiu-jitsu to like really elevate those skills, and he learns quickly, which isn't surprising given that he's been so successful at wrestling. You don't become a great wrestler by just like not learning well. So,
this is true.
Yeah, I'm really excited to put in some time with him to continue to develop not just the conceptual stuff that like I discussed before, but also really refine some of those techniques and get him just a lot more, physically comfortable throwing those techniques in succession and not just single strikes. And man, sky's the limit for him.
Yeah, I agree. I'm really excited about his jiu-jitsu progress and how that's going to go too. Up until this point, like it was just about like getting him ready for like the fights,
right?
You know what I mean? So it was like, all right, like kind of more of like, for lack of a better term, MMA jiu-jitsu in the positions that I expect him to be in,
right?
So like like not diving really deep, just kind of like covering our bases there,
right?
And I think like right now is a good time to dive into jiu-jitsu for jiu-jitsu and the benefits that gives you, right?
Absolutely.
Like maybe even some things that aren't incredibly applicable to MMA, but having an understanding of the whole picture of jiu-jitsu is only going to allow you to improve in the MMA aspects of jiu-jitsu even further.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you know what you're dealing with in the whole way around. You know what I mean? So it allows you to make your progress at a more, expedited rate.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm really excited about that. And also I think stylistically, the sort of wrestler he is going to translate really well to striking and to jiu-jitsu as well.
I agree. One of my favorite things about his wrestling is like his stance in motion.
Yes.
Right? Like when I see him warming up and he's like moving in his stance, hitting his level changes, you can see the hand fight like going in his head. He's making his motions. I'm just like, dude, that's like that's how I would want, like if I'm shadow wrestling, that's what I want to look like.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I told him, I was like, yeah, I'm just going to like get privates with him for Mickey. And I'm just going to sit Mickey down and just have Luke shadow wrestle in front of him.
Watch.
Yeah, just sit there and just like Inception.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, yeah, just like right through his head. Just like, that's how you're that's how you're supposed to move, right?
I believe, maybe I'm wrong about this because I learned this in college. Actually, maybe from this book many, many years ago at this point. But I believe it's called mirror neurons.
I've heard.
Where like just watching like high quality movement helps to like literally make you better at that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. There was a study done with it was a 3-tiered study. There was 3 like groups, and it was on shooting free throws in basketball. Like free throws from the foul line, and they had one group that came in, did their like your whatever your base would be,
right? Like standard.
They came in, you got like your like standard, and then they left.
That's the control group.
The control group. And they didn't do nothing, and then they came back like X amount of weeks later, did it again, and and it, as you'd imagine, like either little to no improvement, little to no decrease, like
right? Yeah,
roughly stayed the same. Then they had a group that came in, they set their standard, and then they went and they watched people shoot free throws, and they visualized themselves shooting free throws and things of that. And then they had the third group that came in, did their standard, and then they practiced. They
physical
practiced. Physical
yeah.
practice. And at the end, as you'd imagine, Group 1, who did nothing, had little to no improvement or little to no decrease. Group 2, the ones who actually practiced the
Right.
free throws, they had improvement.
Right.
Group 3, the group that didn't practice it, they just watched it and then like also mentally practiced it, they had similar improvement.
That's
Yeah.
not surprising, but also like very impressive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Shows your
I
power
know
of the
that
mind.
the group that actually practiced had more,
Right.
but like, yeah, it was like shockingly close.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And when you think about it, it's like, what if we combine both of those things? You know what I mean? Like, dude, now we've
Yes, yes. Now you're hitting the nail on the head. All right, yeah, cool. So, yeah, great job to Luke. Look forward
yeah,
to seeing the progress that he's going to make with more time to train.
absolutely.
All right, let's move on to the 247 fights. We had two athletes fighting there. We had Skylar Lesko and Joao Martinez.
Yep.
Right, we picked up two W's there. Sky with a kind of a highlight reel knockout.
Yep.
Even bigger highlight reel celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of short order. Like the fight, didn't take long. Early first round knockout. Not much to say other than it was pretty impressive.
Yeah. No, he's got very, this guy, not surprisingly, is like a freakishly good athlete.
Yeah,
Right?
dude. He's probably gonna tell you he's like, oh, I'm 5'10". He's probably like 5'8".
Yeah.
And I watch him dunk. You know what I mean?
Yeah, dude, it's
like I watch
crazy.
him dunk. Like yeah,
And
he's like
he was a football player, right?
I believe so. I mean, I see like videos of him still playing like he still plays all these sports.
Yeah.
You know?
So the dude's a freak athlete, and what Sky does really well is kind of like the way that I used to box, like kind of European style, bouncy in and out, and he uses that to control distance really well. And obviously in that fight, he felt that distance
Yep.
and also felt. Which in some ways can be learned, but a lot of it I think is innate in fighting in general, not just him. Knowing when to commit to your shots, you know what I mean? Like obviously, if you just go in and commit to every shot, like you're gonna get countered a lot, you're gonna get taken down a lot, you're gonna be in firefights, you're gonna be in exciting fights that aren't necessarily what you and I are looking for as coaches. But
Right,
when you
yeah.
can choose to disengage at times, when it's not opportune, the most opportune time for you to, actually truly engage, and then only engage when you have a really high likelihood of landing and not getting hit back. Like that is really, really important. And that's what he did really well in this fight. Chose when to engage, threw that big overhand, and put that kid out.
Yeah, for sure. And like, a credit to Sky as well. Like through his camp, we started getting on him a little bit about some aspects of his training, and immediately like on his own.
Yes.
On his own. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like one of the hardest things as a coach is like you'll lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink type thing.
Yup.
Right? And it like sours you sometimes, and sometimes
Yup.
you're like, man, I've like guys, like
I've shown you and
I
told
can't
you
do
what
anything.
to do.
I can't do it. I can't win for you, right?
Yes.
I can't work for you,
And you
right?
can't
You know what I
care
mean?
more than they can.
I
you know
cannot
what I mean?
care
Like,
more about your career than you
Yeah.
do. You know what I mean? So, and Sky, answered the call like without being fully led.
Yeah.
He was like ushered. He was like, "You should go over that."
Yeah.
And then he
did.
did it, and he made big improvements in short order. You know what I mean? And hopefully that gives him confidence, and at least. Well, I mean, I'm sure it gave him confidence, but hopefully it also gives him like
The motivation.
motivation. Yes, to
continue.
motivation, and to be like, oh, dude, like I need to continue on this path
Mm-hmm.
if I'm going to seek the potential that I probably desire.
Absolutely. And Sky, this is directly to you. Mike and I would both love to see you continue walk that path. So please do.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's jump on to Joao.
Joao Martinez. I mean, kid's a fighter.
Dog
dude.
comes to fight.
I'm pretty sure that I could be like, hey, Joao, so you're gonna fight like Derek Lewis next week, and he'd be like, okay. Like,
Yeah.
He's just about it.
He is about it. He is about it. And like this was his fourth fight. And like he just takes him, and like so he was supposed to fight in December, but his opponent shoulder came out while warming up.
I watched it happen.
Which that was a fight. No, that was that taken on short notice?
Yes.
Maybe I
very
haven't-
short notice. He took that like 3 days after his Muay Thai fight.
When were the Muay Thai fights? Were they in December then?
They must.
This
have
could
been.
not have been a December fight. No, this was an October fight.
That makes more sense because it was a card. He fought on the same card
The
that
December
Brody
fight,
and
because
Donahue fought on.
the kid whose shoulder came out, that was at the Meadows Casino, and there's no way we're fighting at Meadows Casino in December.
No,
Because that's like kind of outdoor.
When did Brody,
That must have been October then.
When did Brody have that kickboxing title fight? Do you know?
No, I don't remember, but I think this is the same card. It's the same card that Luke Martin was supposed to be on,
Yes.
and it didn't. So who
Yes.
ended up fighting on that card was Max and Burns.
Yes.
Ended up being Max and Burns, and then Joao's opponent's shoulder slipped, and then and then did Joao fight in December then? No, because only James fought in December. Wow, there's a lot of fight cards. It's hard to keep everything up.
Yeah.
No, so then Joao fought in February. Mm-hmm. That was with it was Tyler Fleming,
Yep.
Joao, Max, and Lucas.
Yeah.
Yeah. So but the kid's like down the fight. He takes fights on. So the fight where the shoulder slipped out, right? He fought the Saturday before.
Yep.
And then he took that fight on a Tuesday, and we had a discussion about it. Like it was like Hunter or Jim hit me up like, hey, like we need a replacement for this, something along these lines, and like Joao's the consideration. That's who they're looking at. They're like, what about Joao? And I'm like, oh man, he just fought. And in my head, it's like, no.
Me too.
No, he just fought 3 days ago. Yeah, no, or whatever. And then you're running a class. Joao comes up to you to talk to you about it because he had been approached about it. Mm-hmm. And I think you were like, let's wait for Mike to get here. Yeah. We'll talk to him.
Yeah.
So I come in, and I go see you first. So you guys can give me the heads up, like, hey, like Joao's going to want to fight this fight. Like we both kind of are like, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Blah, blah, blah. And then Joao walks over to me and he goes, Mike, is there anything I can say that'll get you to let me take this fight? And I was like, yeah, that. And then we texted 247. We're like, yeah, we'll take it. Like, right? Like, if you're coming to me, is there anything I can say?
Right.
To get you I'm like, yeah, dude, that right there.
Yeah. How do I say no to that?
Nailed it. Nailed it. You're in. Yeah. So that all went down, and Joao's had some really good fights. Let's not forget, like he made his amateur debut against Craig Perry. Like,
yeah.
Like at the time, Craig's record was like not good. He had that unfortunate.
He was 0-3, but also you and I know Craig Perry.
Yeah, I knew he was freaking good.
Yeah,
I knew he had that one where he posted, like he had the injury and stuff. It was the most like bullshit 0-3, 0-3. Like, you know what I mean? It's like super bullshit. It's like, oh, dude, that sucks.
It's like, yeah, we know on paper your record's not good, but we also know who you are, and we know that you're a beast.
I think he's like all evened up now. I think he's like in that.
He might be past it even.
Yeah. I don't know. He has not lost again. Yeah. So however many fights he's had, he's like has not.
Lost. Let's put it this way: his last few fights have shown that he's as good as you and I knew he was.
Yeah. Know? Oh yeah. Like everybody knew he was that good. That was just like a terrible like turn. Like I don't know, just like unfortunate circumstances.
MMA is a sport where I feel like luck has a higher degree of impact than other sports.
I would say. I could hear an argument about sports maybe I'm not as familiar with, but like in MMA has the highest likelihood of the not better person winning, right? Like in wrestling, like, you can get caught in a throw and stuff and pinned, things like that. You could have a bad match, a bad day or whatever. But I would say like, roughly 90% of the time, the better wrestler will win the match. Whereas MMA, it's like less because there's so many different like variables. You can get caught in a submission, you can get knocked out, you can get cut early. It could even be with something incidental like a headbutt. And now it completely affects the way that you're able to fight. Like, you know what I mean? Things like that. So just a lot of different ways to like lose in MMA.
Yeah.
Which makes it a little bit more dicey. But yeah.
We'll get back to Joao.
Yeah, Joao's fight.
So again, Joao had like a bunch of very close, good fights. So again, he same deal. Record doesn't look great, but we know that Joao's got skills. We know how hard he works. So this fight, he goes in, he's doing all the right things. He's getting all the right positions that we're looking for. And I know there were some. Criticisms of him being buddy with his opponent, but all things considered, I think he did a great job.
I didn't even know. I have no idea what we're talking about.
Yeah, there's I think he brought it up he did an interview with Luke Payson, and it might have been on a 247 pod, or I don't know.
No, the Luke Payson's the MMA fan cast.
Yeah, I know, but so on that one, they had discussed it a little bit, and I might have heard something else on a 247 pod, but I don't know. Just like the fight cards, it all blends together for me. But performance-wise, what he did, I was very happy with. And the fact that he was, making reads and listening to his coaches properly, which, I know you and I are a fan of listening to coaches.
Yeah, big fan of listening to coaches.
And again, just like making those adjustments mid-fight is really hard to do at an amateur level.
Well, what was being said about the friendly thing?
They were like high-fiving and hugging and stuff.
Oh, like mid-fight?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not like super into that.
I'm
pretty anti that.
I was gonna say, I'll just say it. I'm not a fan of that at all.
I'm okay with friendly banter.
Yeah, I'm okay with friendly banter, dude. To be honest with you,
let's jump into this real quick.
Okay, let's.
Okay, so all right. So there was I was pretty friendly with my opponents.
Yeah.
And Warren did not like that.
Yeah.
Warren wanted me to be mad, or not mad. He just I don't know. I feel like
I think Warren likes you to be indifferent.
Indifferent. That's what he wanted. He wanted me to be indifferent. He thought I was a little too friendly, and I'm sure he has his reasons, and his reasons are probably more right than my reasons. Okay, but out of all of my fights, I had 23 fights. Only one time did I fight somebody, and I was like, dude, I fucking hate this dude.
Yeah.
like you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Only one time. And boy, did it work out.
Yeah, it did.
Maybe I should have hated everybody.
For real. Can I add on to
best
that?
time, yeah.
So not only was there only one, we tried to dislike, well, I guess it's a good thing we can say, Petitschnook.
Oh, yeah.
We saw him walking around, and we were like, "Oh man, I bet that guy's kind of douchey." Blah blah blah. And we were building up in our head,
we had him
to
built up.
And then we met him, and then we were like,
"Oh,
this dude's real cool."
Well, what broke the ice was at weigh-ins.
Yeah,
we're at weigh-ins, and we both had the same underwear on, and AJ was like, "They got the same underwear,"
and he crowd, smirked.
Yeah, the whole crowd kind of laughed and stuff. Mickey Gall had it on his Snapchat or Instagram story, whatever it was. Yeah, but it was fun times, but. I do think there is some value in being friendly towards your opponent, before, even and I'm not saying you have to do this. Here goes some of the positives of it, right? Pros and cons. Some people, if they feel like I'm fighting you and they feel like we're a little more friendly, it allows you to
underestimate.
These are pros, so it wouldn't be underestimating. I wouldn't be underestimating. I don't understand how if I underestimate you, that'd be a pro.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, that's like the whole Sun Tzu thing. Appear weak when you're strong, appear strong when you're weak.
So you want to teach our fighters to start underestimating their
No,
opponents?
I'm just saying that's a pro. I don't think you should do that at all.
I think that's a con.
To have an opponent underestimate you?
No, for you to underestimate your opponent.
Oh, I was saying other way around. If you're friendly, your opponent is like, oh, this dude's too friendly. He's not actually dangerous.
Right. Okay. Yeah. No.
I understand what you're saying.
I wouldn't. That would never cross my mind. That's not. I'm not even on that wavelength. I could never compute that.
Got you.
I could never compute that.
I was hearing what you were saying backwards.
Okay. So no, it doesn't matter. Forwards or backwards. That doesn't exist in my world.
Got you.
All right. What I'm saying is if maybe I might be a little bit more timid because it's a little bit more dangerous to lose to you if you're not friendly. So it's one of my big fears in fighting was getting my unconscious body clowned, right? In front of my friends and family. I obviously you don't want to get knocked out, and I did fear getting knocked out, but more so than that would be someone doing disrespectful stuff.
So you're saying you would rather get knocked out by Machida, who's going to bow at you and
absolutely
all that, than Poetan, who's going to be
well, I don't that didn't seem too
or
bad.
Michael Venom Page, who's going to hit you with a Pokeball.
Yeah, stuff like that, yeah. Or just someone if there's animosity. They're going to be screaming over you and stuff, and then guess what? Now it's not over. Okay, you knocked me out, but now the fight's not over. Now we're going to have to fight backstage. Now we're probably going to have to now I'm probably going to have to figure out where you live and stuff like that. And now I'm risking a lot more because I have to go to your house and all these things. You know what I mean? Whereas if you beat me in the sport,
yeah,
I can accept that.
Right.
Right? Like, yeah, like, you know, like I've lost fights and the opponents that I've lost to have been like, you know, like there's been I've never had a problem
super cool dudes.
with anybody who I've lost to. You know, just everybody's super cool. And it's a sport. So we both had the same goals. We must be very similar to be in the same spot.
Yeah.
We must be pretty similar guys.
Yeah, we got a lot more in common than we have in different.
Yeah, you know. So I always felt like being friendly like allowed me to like be more aggressive. You know, because like I just felt like I could take more risks because I felt safe in the fact that you weren't going to disrespect me afterwards.
Right.
You know, and I guess with that being like my biggest fear, that helped me in that area, right? So it's like if we were friendly, but then the fight that I was mad, I was also just like I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, you know?
Yeah, you're also like, this dude needs to get hurt.
Yeah.
So that's interesting because for me, you know, when I was competing, my thing was always just be yourself. And like, especially me, you know, I was fighting at 165, right? Like, I'm not intimidating. I was a twig, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have like an intimidating face. So like, if I'm at, you know, physicals and my opponent's behind me, I'm just, hey dude, what's going on? Like, you know, or like, I don't know, it's just, there's no animosity. I'm just like generally kind of a friendly dude. So as long as you're remotely friendly to me, I'll be friendly back.
Yeah.
Not like overly so, but you know, like, hey, what's up, dude?
I would guess one of the things I'm really trying to get out there is I don't think that, like, I definitely know that me being friendly towards you has never stopped me from trying my hardest.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think that's what some people, like, don't like about it. They're like, oh,
Yeah,
are you going to, like, ease
Are you going to
up?
be easy? It's like, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
no.
Dude,
It
one
is never.
Favorite dude that I fought, a guy named, oh my God, I'm forgetting his name now. But the only person I fought more than once, I fought him 3 times. And like after I think one time we fought on a home show and like, you know, they were staying over and like we went out and like partied and like, you know, we were like very friendly. And again, like we got a lot more in common than we don't. And like very friendly. And then I fought this kid again and I was trying to kill him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it had zero impact.
Right, yeah. So I think that's like the misconception is that it's going to like have an impact on how violent you're willing to be.
Right.
And I never had an issue with being incredibly violent towards people that I'm friendly with.
Yeah.
So I don't really see it as a problem. In fact, I took like a little bit of comfort. I feel like it allowed me to be a little bit more free, to be a little bit friendly, because also like it made you human, right? Because like in my head, like, you know, like I'm watching your fights and stuff or whatever, and I'm thinking about, and then like, you know, that cycle runs away, and I'm like, what if he's like way stronger than anybody I've ever grappled? What if he hits way harder than anything
What
I've
if
ever
he's the
felt?
Terminator?
What if he's just so fast? What if he does moves that I like don't even know exist?
Yeah.
Right? Like all these things, and then boom, it's like, oh, human, like, you know. So yeah, I have no problem with people being friendly, but if it starts like interrupting the flow of a fight,
I think that was more of the criticism. Do you remember Pat Barry fighting Crow Cop?
No.
Did you see that fight? So
I'm sure I saw it. I don't.
they like in not just at the beginning of rounds, but also like in the middle of rounds. Sometimes they would like congratulate each other and high five and like hug, and I'm like, nah.
Yeah.
I'm not even a fan, and you know, push back if you disagree with me. I don't think you should touch gloves at the beginning of a round.
Oh, I have no problem touching gloves at the beginning of the round.
I'm not a fan. I'm not like I'm not like super against it, but I prefer you don't.
Do you want to talk about why you're not a fan of it?
I have some reasons that I think I'm only going to share with like our fighters, but I do think just like in general, I don't see any upsides to it, and I see some downsides. There's also some things. I'll tell you another time.
Well, I would argue that any upside you see, or any downside you see could be an upside if you use it the other way around.
Potentially, yeah. I mean, I think if you're looking out for it, it's not a huge deal. But like, you know, there are people who are going to sneak shot you off of it. But with that said, if you are prepared for it, that does also offer you opportunities for things that you can do there. So, I'm not like very, very against it, but I do think in general, I prefer our fighters don't.
Right on. All right. Yeah. Cool. All right. So. Back to Joao.
So, aside from some congratulating and such, just incredible fight. You know, positionally he did what we were looking for. Made good strike selections. Came back from a little bit of adversity at the end of the first round. He got hit a little bit hard there. And again, just like listened to his coaches and made adjustments. Did all the things that we wanted to see from him. So, you know, I'm very happy about that. And also, like, I'm just so happy to see him win. Joao's in the gym all the time. He works super hard. You know, he's the kind of guy that you want to see win, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he, like you, you get what you earn type of deal, right? And like people are like, oh, he deserves the win, he deserves this, and it's like, well, you get what you earn, But like as far as deserving goes, he deserved some success.
Absolutely,
there. Yeah,
absolutely.
for sure. All right, so let's jump into the coaching this weekend or that past week. Weekend. All right, so months and months and actually about 4 years in the making.
Yeah.
We didn't have a date set in, but I knew I would be unavailable that weekend,
Yup.
right? That weekend was the same time as the Olympic trials for, USA Wrestling. And we had tickets for 2020. They were supposed to be in State College. 2020 got postponed to 2021, and they were moved to Fort Worth, Texas. I went anyhow. Went there anyhow. But like, you know what I mean? But like, I knew we were going to these Olympic trials in State College. It was going to be a big deal, as you would imagine any Olympic trials would be. But those plans were set in place. The fight team knew before fights were announced. We didn't even know, it's like, oh, when are the April fights? Oh, we don't know yet. Like, it's like months and months in advance. The whole fight team knew, like, hey, like, if something comes up and it's going to be on April 19th or 20th, I'm not going to be there, right? You are allowed to fight without me, as you're seeing. The fighters did fight without. Some fighters elected to continue to fight, without me in the corner. But I don't blame anybody who would prefer me to be there, right? Like I don't know, like I would very, very, very much so prefer Warren be there when I fight, right? Very much so prefer you be there when I fight, So like if you guys couldn't make it, that could be something that would make me be like, all right, I'm not gonna, maybe don't want to do it. And so me and you got together and we devised a plan. And our plan was, all right, well, you are the best man in your best friend's wedding. You need to organize a bachelor party weekend. And I was like, hey, do it on Olympic trials weekend. That way, we're only taking one weekend away from the fighter, right?
Exactly.
We're taking less, right? If you're like, oh, I'm going to do it, April 27th. Now we're like, for those fighters who very much so prefer to have us in the corner, we just eliminated 2 weekends off the calendar, which is like, even then, that's not much. I mean, life, right? We have life too, So in an effort to only eliminate one weekend, we decided to double up and just completely wipe that weekend, right? Lo and behold, here we go. Cards are announced. April 20th.
Yep.
I'm like, hey guys, listen.
Sorry.
I tell like, I'm like, hey, like it's like Olympic trials. Like a lot of your like coaching staffs that you're dealing with come from wrestling.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah, not even just us.
Yeah, no, like I saw Isaac
Right.
at trials. Like I saw him up there and stuff. One of his like main proteges, Jason Nolf, was in the finals.
Yeah.
Beat Jordan Burroughs.
That's so crazy.
And was wrestling Kyle Dake for the Olympic spot. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, hey, like, yeah, like, this is like our Super Bowl.
Right.
You know what I mean? This is our Super Bowl. So that took us both out. And then another card gets announced, right? So there's a card right in Youngstown, Ohio, a made men card. There's a card at the Meadows Casino in Washington, PA, a 247 card. And it's a weekend that
We're
not
out.
available. I am not available. And somehow we managed to have fighters fight on both of those cards, right? So now is time to give credit to the coaching staff.
Absolutely.
Right? And by the coaching staff, I'm talking about the support system that you guys don't often see because I'm really busy taking all the credit. Okay. Yeah, but like, we get these nice awards from 247, which we're very appreciative of, and I enjoy being recognized. But, it goes to show, right? We just had a 3-0 weekend with neither of us there, right? So it might be a little bigger than Will and I. So in Youngstown with Luke Martin, we had player coach Lucas Siebert with him. It's a good thing to be able to rely on your teammates. You know what I mean? In situations like this. I cornered a lot of people during my fight career. You know what I mean? And I think there are some value to it if you are able to corner. You get it from the other end. It gives you experience, and it can help you as a fighter as well. and he was joined by Coach Vince Meng.
Yep.
Yes, Vince. He's just a really good coach. If I would say he's like, so one of the things that I'm often given credit for is like kind of like play by play on the ground, right? In ground fighting, it's like, okay, like literally just follow my right underhook, shuffle left knee in the armpit, left shoulder pressure, turn his head to the right, like, you know what I mean, like boom, 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 boom. Vince has got it same way. So I feel incredibly confident with Vince in the corner. And the other cool thing about Vince is
he can strike.
He can strike.
Yeah.
He can strike, dude. Like, yeah. He started with us as a boxer.
I was about to say, a lot of the people who are listening right now,
they have no idea.
Probably
they're like, oh, Vince, the jiu-jitsu guy.
Right, yeah. They're like,
he's very much known for his jiu-jitsu, and he's a very good jiu-jitsu player. He competes at like high levels. You know, he's doing the IBJJF circuit. All that stuff, super fights. So everybody knows him as like this like really good jiu-jitsu guy. And his style is very jiu-jitsu
heavy.
Yeah, it's like very jiu-jitsu style, like very technical and like
Barambolos and heel hooks and
flowy, great leg entanglements, you know, just like very high level technique. But dude, he started training jiu-jitsu for a weakness, right?
Yeah.
He was fighting MMA, he was boxing, and then he started doing like Muay Thai with us. He was looking good, and you could tell he was smooth with his boxing. So we're like, hey, do you want to spar with us, the fight team? We could, you know, you look like you're a better boxer than most of us. Like, we could probably use you. So he comes and starts sparring. We're like, oh, you're doing pretty good. Why don't you come to the fight team practice? And it's like, okay, well, they're going to shoot and take you down. It's like, whatever. Like, do you care?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, it's practice.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, all right, yeah, they shoot and take you down. Are you going to, like, cry? Like, you gonna be okay? Like, yeah, just like, okay, so what?
We'll get back up.
Yeah, so he did that, and we're like, dude, you're doing pretty good or whatever. You should fight MMA. And he's like, okay. So I was like, you got to start jiu-jitsu. So he chose, like, a January 1st, started jiu-jitsu, blah, blah, blah. Did a couple fights. Jiu-jitsu was still his weak point. So he's like, I'm going to take some time off from fighting and focus on my jiu-jitsu, shore up that weakness. And he never came back.
Yeah.
He never came back. He just went jiu-jitsu.
I would like to point out, there was a time where I was significantly better at jiu-jitsu than Vince.
Yeah.
And I used to arm triangle Vince every time we rolled multiple times. And now, like, which... Again, that's why I have to share this publicly, because now that is not the case in the slightest. Vince is a very good brown belt. I'm a mediocre blue belt, and Vince can pretty much do anything he wants to me on the ground now. So
yeah, I mean, Vince is at the top end of brown belt.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. You know, there were some people wondering, like, at the December promotions, is it coming and stuff like that. And I got some inside info on that that'll stay with me for now. But, like, I just worked out with Vince yesterday. We did a half-hour grind match. Sometimes it's good, you know, just put a long round on and just go, no breaks. And we went one. He submitted me. We went 1-1 on submissions. He hooked me. I got a rear naked choke on him. Mine was a little violent to get revenge, but you know, there goes the whole friendly thing. My choke was straight across his face, and I just was like trying to break his neck.
I was gonna say, I have no problem, or at least when I was fighting, I had no problem with being super violent with like people. Like, dude, one of my best boxing friends, dude named Corey, we used to spar all the time. Some of like the most violent gym battles I've ever had were with him.
Yeah.
Like, I had no problem with it. Anyone who's trained with Mike now knows this. Anyone who trained with Mike when he was fighting really knows this. You have zero issues, perhaps maybe even like it more, being hyper violent with your friends.
I feel like it's more okay.
Yeah,
right?
because
like
you know
if I do that to somebody who, like, you know, I don't know that well, then they're like, man, he's really a dick.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you're my friend, you could be like, man, he's really a dick, but I don't care because he's my friend. It's like my character, you know? Yeah. All right, so yeah, well, that's Vince. So, you know, Luke had an incredible corner. I've heard that the corner played, like, you know, a good role in that fight, because it's not every fight where the cornering even matters.
Right, yeah.
You know what I mean? There's been fights where, like, I haven't said anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I've been more of a cheerleader than a corner, you know? Like, you know, stuff goes, you know. In one of, was it Max? One of Max's fights?
Yeah.
We were just like, all right, dude, you got it. We're just going to enjoy this.
Yeah,
now.
his first fight.
Yeah, after the first round, I think we were like, hey, man, we're just going to kind of enjoy it. Like,
yeah, we're like, listen, dude, you just got a perfect round, so, like, we don't really have much to tell you. Just
just go out there, you know. If you start doing bad, I'll say something, but until then, just do whatever you want. Do, like, what you think's right, and we're just going to sit here and have great front row tickets.
I think I gave him one minor adjustment, and he's just like, "Oh yeah, do you have like more advice?" We're like, "No,
No.
dude.
No.
Keep going."
Oh yeah. So yeah, but they both. I know Lucas specifically said something that made a difference.
Yep.
I'm not saying that won Luke
Right,
the fight.
no,
Luke was going to win anyhow.
But it was good cornering.
Yeah, but good cornering, and Vince did as well. Then we go to the 247 fights.
Yep.
We had.
Hey, yeah, how about this? You and I were not there. We had 3 fights in 2 different locations. The 2 fights that were in one location, not even the same coaches.
Yeah, they didn't use the same corner. I had no idea. Like I didn't know who Sky was using. Like I had no idea who he was using as his corner. I just assumed it was like.
And you know what's
Sage
crazy?
and Poland.
We could have had fights somewhere else too. We still would have been fine.
Yeah. So Sky or let's go Joao. So Joao had Sage, Dan Stupinski, black belt down at the gym. Comes into fight team practice. Was actually, a lot of people know Sage for his jiu-jitsu, but he was like for Lucas's pro debut. He was like one of Lucas's main training partners for that. Like you know what I mean. So he comes in, he gloves up, and he gets hit.
Yep.
And he'll hit you back.
Yep.
And stuff like that. But he's no stranger to like
MMA.
Yeah, to MMA or just like getting it done.
Right. Yeah.
Like he's not afraid. Like he does like pretend. Like he's like, oh no, I can't do that. I'll get beat up. And then he'll fight you.
Yeah.
Yeah. He does like that's like one of his like gimmicks. Yeah. He's like, oh no, oh no.
Leave that to the MMA guys.
Yeah, no, I'm a jiu-jitsu guy, and then whap. It's like, yeah, okay, dude. All right, and then Josh Polance, who's your main assistant coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
So why don't you give us a little bit about Josh? Let's give him some flowers.
Yeah, for sure. So Josh is an incredible striking coach. Josh came to us with some striking skills already. He was training out in New York when he lived there. So the timeline worked out perfectly. So, before Josh, we had Coach Chris, right, who was excellent, Muay Thai coach. And then he left and kind of left this big hole where I'm like, okay, now we need...
Coach Chris, he left to travel the world. He went on vacation and never came
back.
Yeah,
exactly. He was just
it's been like 2 years. Chris was like, I'm going on vacation. And then he went from that vacation to that vacation to this one. Dude, he's just never come back.
Dude, I'll look at places.
I'm like, yo, you're still on vacation, dude.
I look at places in the world. I'm like, man, I wish I'd been there. And he was like, yep, that's a great place. And just
if you get there, this is what you need.
Watch his Instagram stories and you're like, wow, I feel well traveled just watching this.
Yeah, no, I do feel well traveled watching Instagram.
But so he left and I was like, man, like there's this massive hole because again we do have other coaches and a lot of them are maybe a little younger or maybe they're still competing themselves
like
too.
Player coaching. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Ty to a degree, he's still in the fight game potentially. He's got some injuries right now, but I really needed someone who was going to be like that advanced level coach who, isn't also like, hey, I got to focus on me for a little bit now. You know what I mean? Like very much a coach.
Right.
So
he's striking specific.
Exactly.
Right? Like, you know what I mean? Like Vince could jump in and do striking stuff, but like we're busy doing like cool stuff like jiu-jitsu.
Correct. So, Polance comes along. He's already got skills from, training out in New York. Not to mention, he has, it doesn't always work this way, but there's a certain maturity when you're above a certain age.
Yeah.
And I think that is really valuable. And, he's not 20 years old, so, I thought that was helpful. The other thing that's really cool is he's super athletic. Like, a lot of people don't realize, like, how much athleticism... And it's hard to define athleticism, but like he was a college basketball player, right? And in my opinion, basketball is where the best athletes end up.
Yeah, it's one of the most. I would say you have to be a good athlete.
Yes, that's a prerequisite. You know what I mean? There's no grinders in basketball where it's like, oh, well, this dude just works real hard. It's like, nah, dude, you have to be athletic, right? Yeah. And he also learned really quickly. So like the style that I teach and the system that I use it doesn't always have to be, depending on who the fighter is, but it can be very complex. And it can also be difficult to physically do. And he just picked it up super, super fast. And so then I was like, thinking about who was going to take over for Coach Chris. And I was talking with him one time and finding out like what he did professionally, and he's a special ed teacher. And I was like, okay, so not only does this dude have the skills to to understand what we're doing, also he can do it and learn it quickly. also he has the ability to give information out in a digestible format. You know what I mean? Like some people are just like, oh, cool, like I know this and I'm just gonna start spraying things out, but he knows how to teach, you know what I mean? And again,
and he knows how to teach special ed specifically, which it directly lines up with our fighters.
Exactly. So I mean, they're like, I mean, we're saying that kind of jokingly, but also like, there's a lot.
Dude, they're so
to
dumb.
that.
They're all every single one of them is an idiot.
And again, the fact that he's like, and the other thing, and kind of what I was getting about, like with his maturity, is this sport attracts a lot of psychos. You know what I mean? And he's just like, you know, not a psycho. Yeah. So you mix that all together, and we get this perfect match of like, you know, being a really good coach. And you know, little shout out to me. I was spot on, dude. Like my recruiting skills were right there, and he's been nothing but just awesome addition to our team ever since. And you know, especially if you're coming at, you know, if you are coming to us through the MMA side of things, you might not have heard about Josh as much. But Josh is a massive part of our team. He teaches some of the advanced classes. He teaches, you know, I mean, he's just at a bunch of the practices, gives great advice. He's holding pads for the fighters. He's, you know, helped develop, you know, Brody, who, you know, is our top striker. And like, yeah, just like invaluable part to the team. So the MMA world got to see him as a corner for the first time at Joao's fight. And, you know, same thing as Vince and Lucas. He was just giving exactly the right calls. And again, he works with Joao a lot. So he was saying the right things in the way that Joao needs to hear them. And, you know, it led to a great result.
There it is. There it is. So yeah, like, you know, another great addition of, like, you know, someone who's doing a lot of work to help us get these awards. So we appreciate that. So let me jump back to Sage for a second. I'd be remiss if I didn't speak about what he did the night before cornering Joao.
Yes, we should talk about that.
So the night before, Sage was at the Sprawlenberg event, the jiu-jitsu super fight grappling event. He was there. He was going to corner one of his buddies who talk about competition and like friendliness. Sean Foster, black belt from Ohio. Him and Sage, we would put them on Stout fight cards. Like, and like the joke is like they were just going to go against each other, everyone, because their styles, they make the most like entertaining matches. They just like spin around each other for like 3 minutes until somebody wins. Right. You know? So, like, you know, making friends through competition, they became friends, and Sean was like, Sage, can you corner me for this match? So Sage is out there cornering Sean Foster, and he's there, and there's a black belt match, and like the opponent fell through. They had a backup. That backup fell through, and they're like, we need someone to jump into this black belt match. And Sage is there to corner. He doesn't have any of his gear. He ends up borrowing gear, and he's like, yeah, he does it. Jumps in, he does it. He goes flying triangle off of the cage. As his opponent, you know, does a good job of defending the triangle, he transitions into omoplata. His opponent does a good job of defending an omoplata via rollout right into an arm lock and gets a nice submission win.
And when was that sequence being taught?
So literally Tuesday. So the grappling match happened Friday the 19th. So what was it? Tuesday the 16th. Not the flying triangle portion, but like the omoplata, like
triangle was a part.
Oh yeah, actually it was. Yeah, not the flying. So everything, therefore, after the flying, was that was subject matter at the MMA practice. You know, so there you go. You know, like
so for all the MMA fighters who were learning that from Sage, it works.
Yeah, and then he just had a match at black belt in the cage, utilized the cage in this transition. He was not in a position during these transitions where he would have been struck. So it's not like it doesn't translate because like, oh, you just get hammer fisted here. No, that's not the case. So there you go. Sage, big time MMA coach now. Big time. Some people are saying that he might replace me. He could be the heir to the throne.
So I think this is also important. Not only do we have the coaches that we just discussed who, like, again, like, depending where you know, when you like figured out who we were, how you know, discovered us through MMA, whatever, you know, maybe through 247, and you see our names on these trophies, but you have to remember there is a massive coaching staff behind us, like who help us along this journey. It is not just us. It's the people we mentioned. There's, I mean, an army of jiu-jitsu coaches.
Oh yeah, and I mean, there's Warren.
There, like, of course,
you know, like our head coach, you know. he really does a good job of letting me like just like take all the credit, which I think he dislikes it. So like I feel like it's a good like symbiotic relationship. He's like, I don't want credit. I don't want people talking to me and like talking to me and saying things about me. And I'm like, I do.
Yeah,
I do. I
don't take it on.
I love when people say nice things about me. It's like actually my favorite thing. It's my most favorite thing. I love hearing nice things about myself. Yeah.
Oh, that's so good.
But yeah, all right. And then in Sky had Farman in the corner.
Yep, exactly.
Right? You know what I mean? The lion.
Yep.
The lion.
Stout zone.
Which, dude, I saw a picture of Farman like in the corner, dude. He was just on it. He was fully like just fully on it, dude. Oh my God, he's so awesome. He's so much fun to be around.
Love
and then we had a nice assist from our buddy Cowboy Eddie. Right? Yeah. So a lot of help went into these fights, coaching staffs, and like a little bit of like the community as well, right? You know what I mean? Like Cowboy Eddie jumping in Sky's corner, helping out there. Chris Williams wrapping Sky's hands. You know what I mean? So like a lot of community effort, and like I think that happens because like if the shoe was on the other foot, it would gladly be done.
Oh, for sure.
The other way, right?
For sure.
You know what I mean, I've been in several corners, helping in corners, especially in grappling, right? Of other Pittsburgh athletes, primarily Mat Factory athletes, and things like that. At shows I've wrapped other people's hands and stuff like that, and I think that's like, that's where you see a lot of the community come in, right?
For sure.
So definitely appreciate all that.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, yeah. So I mean, that's it then, huh?
That's really all we got,
All right, cool. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Sounds good. We had a backup plan. Or audible?
No.
Omaha. Check.
We're good.
Okay. All right. Well, that's it for this week's episode of Listen to Your Coaches. We'll catch you guys next time.